Hey everyone, and today's video will be learning React.js, and this is the shortest crash course for the React.js. After you have learned this, you can go with any framework or make the projects in React.js. So React.js is a library to create modern reusable components and modern websites. So let's go ahead and start working with it. So we will be seeing how we can create project first. In order to do that, you need a framework or a front-end tooling uh, or framework. So we will be using Vite here, but you can also use Create React app, but I'll be using Vite in this video. So we're going to open the Vite website, so vitejs.dev, and to get started, scroll down a little bit, and you just see how you can install this. So before you can install this with an npm yarn or npm, you need node.js installed on your machine. So it's a node.js, and you just need to install the latest version or the current version. Alright, I already have installed this node.js, and before we start, I'm assuming that you already know the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Otherwise, you will not understand the React. So yeah, now let's go ahead and create our project. So I opened up my code editor, VS Code. If you don't have the code editor, I will suggest you to use VS Code because it is the most easiest code editor I have ever seen. Alright, let me go ahead and open up the terminal from this terminal and new terminal. And then you just say npm. First of all, you just change the directory to whatever folder you want to install your project. In order to do that, you just use the cd and just add the path of your folder. Now I already have done that. I'm gonna go ahead and install the project. npm I npm create vite add that list. So this will ask a few questions. I'm gonna enter the project name, which is React Crash Course. Select the framework, which is React.js for now. And you can also select the JavaScript or the TypeScript. I'm gonna select the TypeScript, but if you are using JavaScript, it's not a big deal. You can still follow this tutorial because I'm gonna explain the TypeScript a little bit as well. Now it's done. I'm gonna go ahead and cd it to the folder. You see I have this folder prepared on wheel. So React.js crash course, and we'll say npm installed. This will install the dependencies, and then you see all these files and folders here of the Vite. Don't worry about all this. I'm gonna go ahead and explain everything here. So let's go ahead and run the project. In order to do that, we just say npm run dev. So let's set dev, npm run dev, and it will start the project on this localhost 51734. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this up in my browser, and you just see how this website is right now. So this is about default boilerplate for the feed. And yeah, now let me go ahead and show you the folder structure. So I have this folder structure node modules. So this node modules means is all the dependencies you have installed for this project. You don't have to actually worry about this. You will never gonna edit anything on this folder. And then I have this public folder, which contains all the public resources. Like we have this vite.svg. So if I want to access this here in browser, I will say vite.svg. So it will show the Vite logo. So you can just add any files here in order to access that from browser, or user can access these files. So that's good. Now let me go ahead and open this as a folder. We have some few folders and files. So let me explain the other files for now. So we have this ESLint file. This is for the ESLint. We have something called linting. You will actually have to understand that at this point. Just ignore this file, but just know it. It will help you to figure out the errors and bugs in your code. We have a git ignore. It allows us to skip some files and folders to upload it to Git. So you will also ignore it for now, but I want to explain this in the future a little bit more. So we have this index.html. So this is the main entry point for the application. So if I have deleted all this and open this website, you just see nothing. It's blank. So I'm gonna go ahead and back it normal and refresh. You see this title, read plus react plus TS. So we can change that from here. This title, let's say React crash course. And then reload it. You see just it says React crash. So this is the pretty much it. So we have this link of main.tsx that is inside this src, and we have this root div. I want to explain this in a little bit. So this package.log.json will never gonna edit anything on this, so just ignore it. It's just for some logs file for the dependency manager, and we have this package.json. So this is actually the everything about the packages you have installed or the run commands scripts. So we will be seeing this in future. Or we have this tsconfig for TypeScript configurations. You also don't have to do anything here if you're still beginner. And we have some other files, so just ignore these files. You don't need this and smaller. But if you are going to use an external plugin for the feed, we're gonna add those here. Alright, now let's go ahead and figure out this as a folder. So we have this assets folder first. This is holding some assets like the React SVG, which is this one, and the Vite SVG I just showed you that is inside this public. So we have this app.css, this is for the CSS stylings. We have this app.tsx, but first let's go ahead and open this main.tsx. So this is actually importing React from React and a React DOM from React DOM client, and we have this app, which is the main entry point from the application, which is this page here, and we have this index CSS. So inside this React strict mode, we are calling this app component, which is now creating a root of React DOM and assigning it to the root div. The div with the ID of root. So which is this div inside this index.html. So this is actually rendering this app.tsx onto this root. Let me show you. Onto this root div. This is basically it is how React works. Actually, Vite works. So you don't have to actually worry about these things. You will understand this in the future. So for now, let me go ahead and open this app.tsx and delete all this content, which are all this. So I'm going to go ahead and start from scratch. Let me delete everything from here. So then we will just export the function, export default function of React. Sorry, you can call it anything, but we will be calling it app right now. There's a function, so we'll say curly brackets, and we will return something from this function. So let's say return, and inside this return segment, we will be adding JSX. So I'll be explaining you what is JSX, but for now, let's assume it is pretty much HTML with a little bit differences. So let's go ahead and write div. Inside here, we'll say hide from by first to React app. So we'll save this, and we will let me get to the browser, and you just see hide from my first React app. Let me go ahead and open this app.css, delete the app.css because we're not using it. And in index.css, we'll be deleting everything here. So you see, this is hide from my first React app. Okay? And let me just zoom in a little bit so you just understand a little bit. So I have this, my first app, and this app name should be matched with the name used here, right? Okay? Now let me go ahead and open this up again. And let's say, what is the JSX? So JSX is pretty much HTML with a little bit differences. Let me show you the differences. For example, if you write a div and you want to assign a class, right? So we'll say class, in HTML, right? Like this. But in JSX, we say class name in camel case, like this. Class and name. Then N for the name should be the capital. So this should work for the class. If I just say add test, with a test, and we'll go ahead and add this class with say background color. Or then just change the language model to CSS. The background color into red. It will be the red color over here, right? So this is how you use the index.css. So how this index.css is working, you open this main.tsx and you see this index.css importing on this main.tsx file, right? So this is the place where you import the CSS for global scope, but if it's for a module, like if it's only for this app component, then you just import it here. Let's say so. Let's import, and you just say the CSS file name with CSS. Okay, so this is how you import it for the component. We'll be saying this in future a little bit, and then okay, let me go ahead and build something here. So in this app, let's go ahead and build a div, right? Let's say div. This div will have a h1. Let's say posts. Maybe let's say notes. And we will have one more div. It will have some other divs in child. Let's say my note. And we'll say other note. And other divs, etc. Okay. So if you just open this page, we'll see my note, other note, and others. Okay. And then we will be adding some more of the classes here. So it's a class name. Let's say note item. We'll be adding it for all these. It's called note weapon. Okay. Now let me go ahead and open this index of CSS. Let's add some basic styles. Margin 0. This is going to remove margin from every single element. Padding 0. This will remove the padding, box sizing, border box. Okay. So let's say we don't have it padding and margins, anything like that. So let me go ahead and grab this address system with this and node dropper. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this. Let's add the background. That's dash F1, F1, F1. And you see we have this kinda gray color. We'll be adding it for the border actually. Then we'll be referencing this node item, actually node wrapper, on some padding. Like that. And then we will be having this node items. Well, okay, node items. Node item. So let's add the background color of white. Padding of 1 font size 1. So you see this notes. Let me add some margin bottom, margin top. 1. So we have this notes here and divs, right? Let me go ahead and explain you how Compose works right now. So we have these divs, right? And what we want to do is, like, for example, we want to change something here. For example, we want to change the class name here. Let's say we'll change this to node, only node, right? Then we will have to change it for all these 3 nodes. Or if we have many more, we'll have to change it for all those, right? But how how we change this? Like, for example, if we have 1,000 devs, we have to change it for everyone, right? So here, Compose comes and solve this issue. For more complex devs, like for example, we have some code, let's say CSS code and images. So for example, this one, we have an icon, we have a title, description, and read more button, right? So how you gonna change all this for, all the divs, stylings, or whatever you want to change? You have to change it for all those. But when you use components, you just have to change it in a place and it will change everywhere. You use that component. Let me show you how we do that. So let me go ahead and delete this assets folder actually. Let's create a folder called components. We will be creating a component called noteItem.tsx. If you are using JavaScript, you say JSX. So let's go ahead and export function, and it's a note item. I'll explain why I used export here and export default here. Okay, now let's return something. So what we will be returning is the same thing here, the note item, right? We put that here. Let me add a button actually, so it will be better. Let's delete, right? Delete the note for deleting the note. Let me grab this and put that with paragraphs. Okay, now let me delete these. So how you call a component from this file to app.tsx, right? In order to do that, we just go here in top of the file. We say info, and in curly braces, you say the component name, which is node item, and you put that here. And it's coming from, and you say the current path from this file app.tsx. So it is inside the component folder of the current directory and node item.tsx. So we'll say current directory, components, and node item, right? So it's just important that component from this file to here. So we'll be copying this and put that here, and it is the self-closing tag here, right? And then now if I save it, open the website, and you see we have that node over here. If I just copy it multiple times, you will see it is right here. And what if I want to change this delete to delete the node? So we will go here and say delete node. So this is as it is easy to change it everywhere, right? On every node. Okay, now let's go here and let's say you want to edit the content for this. Like the content will be different. This is my node and this will be the other node and other and so on. So what you want, how you do it, right? Like how you change this content from this file. Here's the props comes in. A props means you pass an attribute here and it will be used over here or anybody want. Like it can be used on this button as well or the class name as well. So before we go ahead and do that, let me explain this. So why I use this export function here is that you can just grab multiple components inside this curly braces from the same file. Like if I have the other component, let's say it's the delete button, and we just put the delete button here, and I want to grab that here as well, we can just add a comma and put that here, and we'll just import like the other component. So you will see we have this delete button from this, right? But if you have used export default, you will have to say like this node item, right? So you can just import one component. Actually you can import the multiple component, but it is the default component you are sending. But when you use this export function, you can import multiple component here, and I'll be using this export function syntax for multiple components. Components files. Okay, let me delete this. Okay, so in order to accept props over here, right inside this function, you say props or any name, and then you just go here, and in order to use the any variable or JavaScript methods inside your JSX, we just say curly braces. You just add the variable name, which is props, and this props will be holding all the attributes you pass from here. Let's say I want to pass the node, right? So I just say node and add my node. Let's say my node over here. So I get this node attribute inside this props. So I say props.node. Just ignore this error for now. I'll be explaining why this error is coming. So you see here, my node over here, right? This is the props coming here. So if you just say it for the others, when you delete the others, and let's say for this one, props working fine. And you see this props working fine text over here, right? So this is how the props working. Let me explain this error. So this is for the type checking. This is the TypeScript which is generating these errors. In order to fix that, we just go here in top, write a type. That's a props. You can call it any name. And let's just add equals sign. And then you just add all the properties you pass here. Let's say we're passing this node, right? Let's say node. Now you've passed the type. So what is this? Is it a string or number or date or whatever? So I'll say string because it's the string and semicolon. So now we will be using this props here by adding a colon and passing that props. Right now the error is gone. So what this will do is, like, when you add these props and if you hit dot, you will see all the properties are mentioned here, right? So we'll see all that properties. So it is the auto IntelliSense you get on the VS Code or any other code editor. So it's a note. This is the benefit of using TypeScript actually. And if I don't pass the note here, you will see an error. But before we are passing that type, you haven't seen that error, right? So let's say if I save this and you see we have this blank, but we don't want it to blank, right? So in order to do that, we'll just have to add this node attribute. Otherwise, like, it can makes bug in your code. All right, let's see. We have this test. What if you want to make it optional? Let's say we want a button. Let's say button delete. So you want to pass a props which says you want to delete this. You want to have the delete button or not. So for doing that, you just go here. Let's say delete show delete button. So what is this type? So this type can be Boolean because it can be true or false. Let's say Boolean. Like that. So now we see over here, it says like it's error. It's showing the error for all these buttons, like all these components. But if you want to make it optional, you just add a question mark before that colon. So it will make this optional, right? Now if I go here, and what if I want to use the terminal purpose or if else inside the JSX? You just go ahead and do it like this. So inside curly braces, you just add your variable or condition, whatever it is. And then if this condition is true, then we will be showing this button. And if it's false, then we will show nothing. Just blank string, or it's a null, right? So this is not defined. So it's a props dot show the button. This is going to have this here, and let's go here and add the TSX. Except that you see all these things. But what if I want the delete button for this test? I say is show delete button, the same attribute you provided here. That's a true. and you just see that button over here. So this is that easy. All right, now let's go ahead and move to the conditional renders. So what conditional renders is, like, if you, like, we already have done that here actually. So if this show delete button is true, then show a button, otherwise it's no, right? So what if I want to change this with the paragraph, which is will show no delete button, right? So it says no delete button for the other node because I haven't passed this show delete button, and the by default value of this is undefined, which is the false. Okay, so this is how the conditional renders works. And then let's go ahead and open this. Let's remove it and change it to it. Actually, it's fine actually. Okay, and we will be adding a line name, so HR. In HTML, you probably have done like this, HR, like this, right? But you can't do that in JSX. You have to say, you have to self-close this, or you have to add another self-closing tag here, okay? I mean, closing tag here. But we'll be doing self-closing here. Okay, I have this line. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and open this add.tsx here. So what if you want all this inside another component, like let's say nodes. With the nodes.tsx, we can do the texture. So it's a export function nodes, and it will return all the nodes here. All this, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put that here. And here, if you notice that we have kind of cool IntelliSense for PS port. If you just remove one letter and, you know, press the letter here, you just see the IntelliSense here. And if you click on it, it will import that automatically for you. So now if I go here and let's remove this and import the nodes here, let's say nodes. Hit enter, so it will automatically import for you. Now it will work the same, right? Okay, now what if you want these nodes from an array, right? Let's go ahead and declare an array here. Let's say nodes, which is the array with a text, which a text or node, let's say node, so it will match over this. We don't have to match this actual. Let's say text. So text, it is going to be text, and you want a show delete button, which is true. Let me go ahead and do this for the other node and the other node, and it is false from that one. Okay, so I have this node variable. And for having the type checking here, we can do the same. You can use the same props here. So let's export type props, and we can import that here as well. Let's props from node item, and here colon and put the props. So we have to change this to node now. Okay. The will be this is an array, so we have to explicitly set that it is an array like this. So array of these props. Okay, now if I go here nodes and want to show all these nodes here in DOM, how we do that is, let's go here. Inside this curly braces, you say nodes dot map. And inside the parentheses, you just say item or any variable name you want here. And index, it provides an index actual. So here, it just render it. Inside this curly braces means just return it. Otherwise, it is parentheses. But if you use the curly braces, you just have to explicitly say that it is returning this node item, right? So it is easy to use the parenthesis. Okay. Now remove this. And here in node, you have to say the item.node. This node is going to come from this text, right? So we have the auto intelligence for this type checking, this one. But if I remove this, it will still have that because it is on the same file. But if it's the dynamic, like it's calling from the API, you will never have that. Okay. So node like this, and for this delete button, we'll say item dot show delete button, and save this. If you see now, it's just calling all this from here, right? If I change this to admin node, to my node, it will say my node, right? Now, if you open the browser console, you will see some errors again going on. So the first error is this, that each child in a list should have a unique key. So in JSX, we have to provide a key property if you are using it inside map or any loop, right? So we have to add a key, and it should be unique it should be an unique identity for each and every component. So we'll say item here dot, I think you can do that, but as it is the unique, we will set this index. So this index should be unique. Now, if you load this, we will not see any errors. These are the warnings for my Chrome extensions here. Just ignore all these. Okay. Now, this is how you look all these array elements to your DOM. And then now let's talk about hooks a little bit. So hooks in React.js is a way, like, is a thing that makes your work a little bit easier. Let's talk about useState. For example, if you want to change something on UI when you click this button, how you do that? So here's the states comes in. So let's go here and say post inside this brackets, square brackets, we say a name, let's say actually let me do it for this node icon, or maybe actually not. Let me do it for the. So let's say post inside square brackets, we say data and set data. And now you have to import something from React. Import, curly braces will say useState from React. So this will import the useState from React. Okay, I'm to use it here, useState, and in just add your initial value. So for now, let me go ahead and use the blank array. And let me switch this with this modes. Okay. This should be. So there's some errors. I'll be explaining this right away. So as we don't have any data over here, it's just showing null, right? This is working like the variable. But what's the difference between the normal variable and useState? That you can update the value on the, click events or any other events with the state, right? You can just update the value on EY, but in variable you can't do that. So let's go ahead and grab this array and put that here and remove this. Now let's reload it to just see this, all the same thing, all these are right here. Okay. Now all these are blend too. And we can just use this props on this useState inside like this. So props, this is an array of props like that. Okay, that's good. Now let's go ahead and put the button. Let's change data. So this change data. Let me go ahead and add a click event here. So I say, what if one click? So in HTML you just say on click like this, but in JSX you have to set on click in camel case. Inside curly braces, you have to specify a function name. We'll be creating a function here. Let's say function change data in the function. Let me go ahead and copy this and put that here, change data. And inside here, we can do anything. Let's say console log. Let's say change data function. Save this, and if you just open console tab, if you click on change data, we just see the text in console, right? Okay, let me go ahead and change this state now with a new data. Let's say state, let's say set state, set data, and you have to put your new values. So it is these values, and let's change this to new test data, and remove the other one. So now, if you go ahead and click on change data, you see this new test data and the other ones are gone. So this is how you update the states, right? Okay, now let's talk about how you get these data from an API call. Let's say we have a JSON placeholder API. This is a REST API. So when you search for this, I think we have it first. Yeah, so if you search for it, we get all this data. Let's set to be. Okay, it's fine. So you get all this data in post get request, right? Okay, let me go ahead and use this. So this is an API by default, and this is an extension I'm using for it's pretty fine, but the raw data looks like this. Okay, now we're gonna copy this, and here, for example, on the click of this change data, you want to call this API endpoint and show all this data, right? How you do that? So here, fetch request comes in. So let's go ahead and say fetch a variable. So let's say response. You say fetch function here. You call the fetch function and put your URL. And by default, it is the get request. But if you want to use some custom configurations, we just add a comma. And in the curly braces, we have to mention the configurations. For example, we have a method. It can be post, it can be get, it can be patch, it can be delete. But for our case, it's get, right? So let's go ahead and use this response. So by default, this response is a asynchronous function, a promise, and it needs the then method, which will have a data, right? And data will be in a JSON format because all these are JSON. So we have to convert it to JSON because the data is JSON. And then we have another .then because it is a promise, right? This is itself a promise. So we have the actual JSON now, and then we can just set this JSON to here, right? Set this data. So set data, and we have this JSON. So what this JSON is having, basically, we have this title and body, ID and user. So we're gonna ignore this user ID. We'll be using this. So now, as this content is changed here, we'll be adding the meaning. So tag booster. Let me remove this. We're gonna change this props to X ID of member, title of string, description what I will this is for the body of string. We don't need this button. And now we don't need this as well. We'll say title inside strong, and this should be a body. Okay. Now here I want a title, body, and ID, right? Actually, I don't need this. I don't remove this. So title and description. Title and the description. So you get here we have this title and body. Okay. Let me remove this ID here. So title and body. So we go here and say item.title because it is the data, right? And it is the initial value as well. So item title, and from description item dot description. Actually it's body, not description. Okay. Now if I go here and refresh, it looks fine again. And then when I call this, we want to set the data here. And this JSON is an array of props. This is what this is showing the error for. So I'll say this is a props array, so it just one arrow. And now let me remove this because the set data is working here inside this then. And if I refresh, click on change data, I see all this data here in populating. Okay. Then so this here you see the fetch request is a little bit messy. So you can make it more readable by using async and await. So it's async here inside this function. Before the function keyword, you just say async. And here in fetch, before the fetch keyword, you say await. So it will wait until this promise is finished, right? And if we don't need this then it's with the data JSON, which is the response.json. This is a promise tool, so we'll say await again here. And delete this. And we just say set the data and his JSON. And we just have to use the types, which is the props, and it is arrows, so we'll say like this. Okay, actually, it's a promise of it. So it's a promise of this props array. And okay. It's awaiting eventually. Oh, okay. Actually, it's a prop, but this should be the promise. That's a promise of the props. Okay. Okay, it's not like that, but let's go ahead and make it as this props. Okay, like this. So this should be the same as this props. Okay, now if I save this now and reload it, it will show, if I collect trace data, it will show all this data now. So to fix this, we go here in TS content JSON. Actually, yeah, TS content with JSON, and you just add a rule here. What's the rules? Let's add a tops, a rule top. What's the rules? Inside these rules, you just specify this module here, which is this thing. Copy that. Put that here. And in this is an array. That's a thing. And the other item should be an object. of checks void return should be object of attributes false. You don't actually have to understand what is going on here, just write it as I write here. Sorry, you had to put that in ESLint rc.c.js. So inside this rule, so you have to put this in terms with this option. Save this now, and the error should be gone from here. Okay. So this is how you get the data from a grid. So now let's say you want the data by default, right? Like when you load the page, we want all this data, all this fake data. How we do that? So in order to do that, we have another hook called useEffect. So let me go ahead and import that from React actually. useEffect. This useEffect and here, let's say useEffect. And if you just say type useEffect snippet, we have a snippet by default, and you get this snippet by installing an extension called it's called ES7 React Redux React Native snippets. So you just install this, and you get all this kind of cool snippets. We're gonna delete this actually. Inside here, what you do is this, I'll call this function change data. Instead of this change data, you just go here and just copy everything here and remove this. Actually, we will be creating a function here. Let's say load data, and which is going to be this. Fetch the then response, and we're deleting response. Response for JSON. And then we have another then, which is JSON, and we will say set data, and then this data. We have this props. I will be deleting the other stuffs here. And we have another thing like catch, which is for the error. So if you have an error, it will show the error in console or whatever you want to show. So I'm going to go ahead and show this error from console for now. And this JSON should be of this thing, okay? And we can actually move this function over here. Instead of this change data, I'm going to change this to load data again, and use that load data over here. So if you now go here and load it, by default you will see it's showing all this data. But let's go ahead and network it as slow network. So reload it. The actual fast 3D should be fine. So reload. You see these two data and the others are coming a little bit late. So you can show a loader for that. Let me actually remove this by default data here. And now reload it. You see like that. But all just in straight fresh to me. And in order to show the loader, you go ahead and create a new state. Let's say is loading, which is a state that can have a boolean values. So by default it's false. Actually by default it's true. So when it is loaded, then I'll just say it's false, right? And here I'll say this loading, they'll say loading at the whistle space though. But now reload. Okay. It's loading us through, then let's it on depth with loading. Otherwise, no. Okay, that's weird. Oh, okay. I actually had to put that inside here. So inside add a curly braces here and put that like this. I reload it now. You should be able to see this loading. See that? But okay, now when you click refresh data, you want to show the loading again, right? So to do that, you just go here in top and say set loading is 3. Okay, and see loading. If I refresh it, loading. That's good. Now, okay, now let's talk about the environment variables a little bit. Like for example, we have some APIs, so it will definitely have some API keys or something like that, right? So to store that in a variable so that it can be secure, you just go here and create a file for the .env.local, .env.local, or just .env, right? Outside of env, and you just add the .env file. So for read, you have to send read and then the environment variable name. So let's say it is API endpoint. I'm gonna put this here. And how we access this, you can check that here in Read's website. You just go and search for env, and you see we have these things, how you can just get this. So let's say the import meta.env, then your env file name. Let's go here. For removing this. Actually, we'll be just adding that endpoint, and we'll be adding the post from here. So import string, we'll be saying import.meta.env dot the environment variable name, and we'll just say posts, yeah. It's showing an error because it is the restricted thing, so we're gonna also make it as string because we know it is already there. So let's see, reload it. I actually have to restart the server item. The memory is trust in it. Okay, still it's working fine, but if you have a mistake here, it would never work, right? It just shows an error here inside your console. Alright, now at this point you know the basics of React.js, and you can try to build projects, and you can go with Next.js as well. Hope you like this video. I'll be seeing you in next time.